What emails were sent between June and Jerry? We're going to talk about the steps that it takes to go through a workplace investigation upon receiving a complaint of sexual harassment. We have Jane and Jerry. Jane has reported that Jerry asked her out several times, which has made her feel very uneasy. Jane wants you, the director of HR, the HR department, to investigate. What do you do? The first thing is to receive the complaint from Jane. Give Jane ample opportunity to write down any recollections that she has or provide any notes or paperwork or support for any of her complaints. The second step is determining the scope of the investigation. Who do you have to ask questions? When did this happen? Where was it? Was it out at a work retreat, at a work dinner, or was it in the four walls of the office? Was it on Slack? Was it on Teams? It's very important to get a hold of what the scope needs to be. The third step is to maintain confidentiality, but you also have to tell the stakeholders in the investigation. You have to let Jerry know that someone has made a complaint of harassment against him. You have to also let him know that it is company policy that if there are any retaliatory acts against this person, he will be fired. Now, there are certain cases where you will want to remove the parties from working on, let's say, the same schedule or shift. You certainly don't want the complainer, the complainant, to bear the brunt of her making the complaint. So you want to put that burden on the respondent, the alleged wrongdoer, because as a female in this situation, she could say, well, I made a complaint and then it was all on me because I had to move to third shift. Courts don't like that. The fourth thing that you have to do is make sure all the evidence is preserved. You have to send out a message to people saying, don't delete emails. You have to go to your IT department and say, what emails were sent between June and Jerry? Maybe there was an ongoing romance and he wanted to continue the romance and she didn't. You've got to find out what happened and get to the bottom of it. You have to also decide who to interview. Who is an important witness? Is there anyone else on Jane and Jerry's team? What about Jane and Jerry's supervisor? Make sure that you ask questions to them and you tell them that this is confidential and they are not to speak of it. That's very important to maintain the integrity of the investigation. Upon these interviews, you've got to evaluate people's credibility. You're going to interview Jerry. You're going to interview Jane. Who is more credible? Does Jerry have complaints from other women in the past where he has asked them out? Granted, inaction in the past does not necessarily make inaction in the present more probable than not. I would say that it's a good hint that perhaps Jane is credible. The next thing is you want to draft your investigative report. Facts, 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 facts. No opinion. You're just laying out the facts as they have been presented to you as the investigator. Okay. The next thing is you have to determine who gets a copy of this investigative report. It's a good idea for June to receive a copy of the investigative report to make sure that her feelings and her experience is validated and to make sure that she knows that the company is taking it seriously. Part of that is presenting your findings to June and Jerry. And that may also be to their supervisors on a need-to-know basis, of course. Here's the hardest thing to do. Taking the corrective action, that part is hard. It's hard as an HR professional to determine exactly what kind of punishment an offender or wrongdoer should have. It's very tricky. Do you provide counseling to Jerry about boundaries and sexual harassment and make sure that he's totally up to snuff on that? Does Jerry get the boot? Does Jerry get an unpaid suspension? There are so many different options. I think it's important to consult with any other stakeholder in the situation to see what is most appropriate given the circumstances. If it's something absolutely egregious, you can't turn a blind eye. That person has to be terminated because the next time that employee does something bad, the complainant will end up suing and they'll say the company allowed this person to get away with XYZ. And that's not a good look.